Welcome everyone to tonight's discussion and after show for the season 2 finale of House of the Dragon, an episode that left a lot to be desired, as we'll talk about in the discussion. So, for my live watchers, I asked them a question. I'm gonna pose the same for those watching the replay and watching this edited version. Put one word in the comment section now how you felt about the finale. Obviously, we'll get to just final thoughts at the end of this breakdown, scores, all that stuff. But just put one word in the chat, one word in the comment section how you felt after the episode got done playing. And I'll read those once we get there. But this is my initial impressions. My one word that I'll give to you all now is I don't even, disappointed, underwhelmed. I mean, this is more than one word. Upset, frustrated. Um, just not a feeling that you want to have after watching a finale of a show that I've thoroughly enjoyed. If you all have been watching these breakdowns every week, again, I appreciate y'all. But I don't want to say I've been defending the show. I think the show speaks for itself. But I know that there has been conversations about the pacing, nothing really happening, a ton of setup, and there's something to be said about that. But I was mostly enjoying what we got for this season. But I'm one of those people where I can be maybe disappointed or underwhelmed by how things start. But if you can end on a high note, a lot could be forgiven. But tonight's episode was not that. How things wrapped up was pretty disappointing. But we'll break it down. With that being said, let's get into this first scene here. Been with this meeting here. You'll being cut here with Tylan, who's trying to talk to essentially these pirates that have what they need. They're trying to get the blockade, unblocked and trying to get alliances going. In this opening sequence here, we meet a character who I wasn't familiar with. Character here, could just kind of talk about them now, and a character that brought some levity in tonight's episode, which I didn't think was needed. Jumping ahead when we see them in the pit and they're wrestling in the mud, and Tylan kind of impresses her and she agrees to help, and she wants to test him, and she feels as though he's someone that can warrant her attention and warrant her army and her men. There's like I said, a sense of levity, excitement with this new character, but as we'll talk about in this breakdown, this was one of those scenes and just collective scenes that I just felt was unnecessary, if I'm being honest. Like, to introduce a new character is fine. And a character that I'm excited to get more from in this relationship and see where this goes. But this is a season finale. And you're introducing characters that offer levity. Again, I'm excited to see what she brings next season in 2-3 years. But for tonight, she didn't really bring much to me, and didn't really bring much to this episode besides obviously getting what Tylan was there for. But let me know how y'all felt about that scene, about the new character, and if you got anything from it besides, again, the moments of levity, the wives joke, the playing in the mud, gaining the respect. Didn't really do much for me. But like I said, fingers crossed that this is a payoff for next season. There was a glamor of hope. There was a little bit of me that's like, okay, we about to get things going. As we kind of cut from that opening scene, we go here from Aemon. We know last week he saw Debo. He saw Debo, which was Rhaenyra and the dragons last week. And he said, he tucked in his chain and went the other way. He gonna cry in the car. He did cry on his dragon. And we see him here. He's frustrated. He's upset. He's desperate. He's taking his frustration out on this small town, the Sharp Point, which I think is a strategic. This is not just like out of an anger moment. I believe Sharp Point has some type of benefits to Team Black, resources to Team Black. So it is a strategic move of what he did, but it is spawned from anger and pettiness that is fueled with just that urge and that yearning to prove himself, to not be embarrassed, to not be fearful, because he is fearful. This is the first time last week and in tonight's episode has shown us this side of him that we really haven't seen. This season in general, just kind of sticking on Damon. I'll kind of weave in and out of thoughts of the episode, thoughts of the season. But someone, looking at Aemon this season, we've seen different shades of him. like that as far as a character and a progression and kind of layers and complexity and depth to the character. So it is something that I enjoyed, and we'll talk about Eamon a little bit later. But like I said, his whole path this season has been one that has shown a young man trying to find his way, trying to prove himself, and what that led to is many different things that transpired in this particular episode, in a sense, but also more importantly in the season. So I will say, as far as this through line of this episode, Eamon was someone that was on the thumbs up for me. He was someone that offered me something that was at least intriguing. Unfortunately, that can't be said for a lot of other characters in tonight's finale. But plotting this entire series and especially in this season, and that's Laris. He puts the seed, he plants the seed into the king's head, Aegon's head, and says that your brother's upset. He's desperate. He's lashing out and killing his brother and finishing him off this time. So Laris tells the king, listen, yeah, I know you got your pride. You don't want to walk away from the situation. You don't want to be a coward, but you want to live to fight another day. To him, that if we can figure it out once this passes, my lord, my king, then we can step in and you can be the king of peace. You can be the king of rebuild and talking all that stuff in his ear. And he's working it, man. He's Rhaena stuff in this episode. I told y'all last week how I would have jumped out of this house if she would have got her dragon this episode. That didn't happen, but obviously they set it up, and we'll talk about that last scene with her. But this is an issue I have with this episode. Not this particular scene, but again, just how this episode was structured. I'm someone that looks at, when I look at movies and shows, where are scenes placed? How are they paced? And how do they fit into the overall narrative of what's trying to be told in a particular episode? This is an example to me of just bad placement, because when we were intercut with Rhaena throughout this episode, it kind of felt extremely random to what was going on from the previous scene and the scene that precedes that. It just felt off. As is, and I'm going to tie this into going back to Thailand when he's, fighting in the mud. It's just like there's moments and placements of scene that just didn't make the episode flow well. It felt like it was abrupt. Things will cut in, and it was just like, here's a setup for next season. Here's a teaser. Here's a little insight of what's to come, but it didn't pay off in this episode. You got to remember an individual episode perspective. Your main priority isn't to set things up for another episode or another season. It's to give you an overarching a theme, a thematic through line of that particular single story you're trying to tell. And this episode was far from that. This was a quintessential setup episode through and through. To be fair, there are things that is paid off. We'll talk about Damon. That's a bright spot of this episode. We finally get a resolution with him. But everything else in this episode just felt like unresolved storylines, set up storylines, and just made it feel incomplete. Is my other word to bring up earlier about this finale. He's a character, again, going back and forth about episode, but the season. Corlys to me felt like a character that was kind of in the middle, meaning that he didn't really have like a drastic change, but he also didn't have they didn't, digress the character. He was just kind of, I don't want to say flatline, but he was just kind of even keel for me in this season. And when we didn't really see him mourning the death of his wife. And again, this is why I bring up the scene. The ship is no longer called the Sea Snake, but he's now calling it the Queen That Never Was, obviously in an appreciation of his fallen wife. I respect that. I love that. Rest in peace to the Queen That Never Was. I get that. But I needed something more from Corlys in this finale and in this season as a whole. Because like I said, it was just very, very even keel. Never felt that Corlys scene, that's the moment that he was pissed of losing his wife, and he got these two bastard kids, and he's lost, he's confused, he doesn't know where to go. It's just like we never got that scene with him, and it felt like, I don't know, was it a scheduling issue, underwriting the character? But we never got that moment from him, appreciating what the scenes were leading up to. Obviously, the journey wasn't the best for some, but the destination is where you ultimately want to go. I'm talking about Damon, and he was a shining star, shining light of this episode for me. One of the shining lights, one of the very few. But he's telling Damon, "Look, man, The queen sent me here. I served the king Viserys well, and the king before him, and I obviously, serve Rhaenyra. But the people need a king, and they will follow you, Damon. Um, and honestly, if this was the Damon of episode 1, if this was the Damon of season 1, he would have been like, you know what, my man, you 100% right. Let's get this going. But again, I'm very aware of how the scenes played, and they were maybe distracting and a little underwhelming, and didn't have much of a guiding star to where it was going. This is a new leaf. This is a new Damon who has seen the likes of an Oscar, who has seen the likes of his mom in the bed sheets, who have seen the likes of his fallen wife, and and a younger version of Rhaenyra, and his brother, obviously Viserys. He's a new man, and we'll talk about something else that he saw in this episode that will forever change him. And he goes, this is a Hail Mary of a call, man. He's upset. He goes into his sister corridors where his mom is there and says, listen, do y'all want to live? Do y'all want to live? If so, we got dragons. We got riders. Sister, I need you to get on your dragon and to fight with me before we can live and save our legacy and our family. And Helena's like, me? You want me to go to battle? I've never ridden a dragon in my life. And it just and number one, a couple things in this scene. Obviously, we talked about the aiming of it all. He's desperate. He's literally calling for untrained warriors to get on dragons that have no sense of war and combat. So that's one. Number two, Helena. I love that she said, no. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a flat no for me, dog. But number three is Alicent. This is the first time I can think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, of her being a mother and putting her kids in order. And not necessarily Helena, but she defended her daughter. She's been doing that a lot this season. She messed up in episode 1 with getting her, sleeping with Kristen, and we obviously know what happened to her son. But also at the when they were going through the streets with the kid's body, and how she was protecting her daughter then, and how she was protecting her daughter in the streets. She's finally coming into motherhood. It took so much to get there, but she's finally doing that. But the thing that stood out to me was she looked Aemon in the one eye in the eye and told him, no, you have lost it. Like I really appreciate that from Alice. And again, I'm a team Black representative, but I can appreciate, again, characters having growth and maturity, and not being the same old from the first episode to the 8th episode. So I like that Allison, with her reborn bath of last week's episode, and her kind of coming out a new woman and a changed leaf, turning over a new leaf. And we'll talk about another thing she tried to do later in this episode, a little too late, but I like it. I see, the seeds were planted. This is a much different Alicent from episode 1 to what we saw in this episode. It's because he made his return. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the reason why this episode was off. Because he was in it. No, I'm being jokey, but I'm being serious at the same time. I'm not a fan of Kristen Cole. But listen, this scene to me is another scene that kind of felt a little out of place, didn't really serve much of a purpose. I'm trying to remember the last time we saw Kristen Cole. I'm just trying to think of last time we saw a character to where he's at now. I don't know if that translates from when we see him from last to now. A little bit goes into it that I don't really care for the character. Nothing against the actor. I think the show's done a good job of not making you like the character, but at the same time, it's just like whenever you check in on him, there's nothing there. I think of a Jaime Lannister from the Game of Thrones run. And, first few seasons, you're supposed to hate the character. He threw, Bronn out of the window. He's sleeping with his sister. He's a dishonest, the Kingslayer, all this stuff. But there was still a level of intrigue about the character. I don't know what's intriguing about Cole at this point in the show. A redemption arc? I don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't care for it. Damon, again, we go back to these last 6 or 7 episodes. He's been in Harrenhal. He's been very reluctant to facing his demons, facing his past, his mistakes, things that he's done that he wish he can change. And it's all led to Alice saying that he's ready. We see the three-eyed raven. We see the blood coming from the tree, and he's seeing the future. He's going through things, and winter is coming. This is what puts Damon on a new path. He sees that winter is coming. He sees the story that Viserys was told, and that is a story of fire and ice. And he sees the White Walkers. Now, to be a nitpicker, but I don't know who this particular White Walker is. I hope they're not saying this is the Night King, because that is obviously a much different character design. Obviously, we've seen the generals of the Night King and of the White Walkers, and they all had different looks and styles to them. But I don't know who that guy is. Oh, this made my heart smile. We got my queen, Rhaenyra, but the other queen is, Khaleesi, Danny. We get to see Danny, man. He gets to see that his bloodline does, regardless of what side wins, team black, team green, their bloodline is still alive in the future, and they have dragons to see who's on the throne. And as Rhaenyra, he does see that she is there, and levels of her powers are, but if she's able to interpret and to get into someone else's hallucinations and dreams, Helena is very powerful. Very powerful. And tells him, basically, again, you're just part of the story. And again, I think all these visions really spoke to the new side of Damon. These last 8 weeks, everything that he's been going through, these visions has all led him to this. This is huge, man. Because again, there's a, I don't say it's on the nose, but it's pretty apparent that Damon and Aemon are similar. And when you have someone of your blood look you in your one eye and tell you, listen, man, you're going to die. Aegon is going to end up on a throne again, a wooden throne, and you're going to die. And he says, I can have you. Well, first off, before that, she says, I know what you did, which is you burned your brother and tried to kill him. That's treason. What do you come up with that? No, I saw it. So shut up. I got 2 eyes. You got one. She tells him, you're going to die. And he says, I can have you killed for that. Well, you can have me killed, but that ain't going to change the future. I love it, Helena. I love it, man. And again, this is another character that just sees the power that they had a grip on, just slightly losing that grip. And I'm not sure that's a good thing for us, Team Black, because this character has shown that he is, when he gets upset, there are lives that tend to get taken. Imagine, again, you got to remember, last time Rhaenyra was with him, it was a little bit of a physical altercation and walked out. She doesn't know who he is at this point, right? So she looks at him and says, well, who do you all serve, me or him? Tells her this is a bigger war at play. Winter is coming, right? And he looks at his queen, and last 7 weeks has led to this. I'm on one knee, claiming you are my queen. I hope they don't go that drastic, but I still hope that there's moments of like, when you know that you're going to die, when you know that there's a war coming that's bigger than the war that you're fighting now, like, what does that do to a person? So I'm just interested to see what a Daemon season 3 looks like. Is Alice, do we have any more of her character? Does she move on? Like, he's had this newfound glory, this newfound purpose. Does Alice come along? Another good scene. One good scene followed up by another good scene. I was waiting for this. Alan finally speaks up, man, because Corlys, again, I told you earlier, I like the character, but he's handled the bastard situation pretty poorly. Appreciate that, because he does have that moment to tell his dad, like, you ain't shit, Dad. You really ain't, man. Corlys, I hope there's a lot more to be explored there. But I do appreciate that from Alan, because he's been very much quiet and silent and just yes, sir, and doing the thing that will make his dad happy in his eyes. But he finally tells his dad about himself, and Corlys needed to hear that. And I gotta admit, man, I'm always a person that can always, even with the kind of the shortcomings of this episode, the misplacements of scenes, the pacing being off, some scenes kind of feeling pointless, if I'm being honest. I don't want to say this was a pointless scene, but I felt like it's a little, again, misplaced. This didn't really move the needle for me, this scene. Great acting. I'm not going to dismiss that. but it just felt like it was empty. The way I felt about the first meeting, like, oh my goodness, like Rhaenyra is stepping out of her comfort zone, risking her life to have this conversation, trying to end this war before blood is shed, or even more blood is shed. Now, like, that was an interesting scene. This one didn't work for me. The montages are effective when you have a lead up to a montage that makes you get excited, it makes you get, all giddy inside. But this one just kind of felt lame. It just felt like I said, just a wet fart. Everyone's getting prepared for war. We got Team Black getting prepared for war. We got the Team Greens getting prepared for war. We got some Starks marching in Winterfell. We have the Lannisters. We have the Blue Queen, which is the dragon that Alicent's other son has. We got Otto in a crate. What does that mean? From for the High Towers, from Old Town. We have, obviously Daemon overlooking his fleet of army. We have the two oppositions on the sea with Thailand and the pirates, and Corlys and with their new ship with the Queen that never was. So, and then these are the last shots. I'm sure if I were to go back and watch season 1, these moments might be more impactful, because I'm pretty sure that this framing of, we see Alicent looking out in the distance to the foreseeable future, and then it's kind of a mirror shot of one character is looking out into the distance, and then you follow it up with another character. In this case, it's Rhaenyra, and it's almost like they're looking at each other the way that the shot is framed, and it's the last shot of the season is them just looking out of what's to come, which is a war, bloodshed, moving forward. I'll speak on the finale, and then I'll touch on the season. But the finale was a letdown. Very disappointing. Last week should have been the finale. Just the way it ended, it was way more exciting than this episode. If you were going to end this season with this episode, you should have had a 9th episode. You ended things on such an uninspiring way. It's just a setup, right? And you can even have a setup, but if you have things prior to the setup, right? If you would have had, and again, I'm not even speaking to the action of it all. I need things to have a payoff and feel like there's a complete story being told, and that wasn't the case. As far as the season goes, say defend it, but I think the season speaks for itself. I think this was a really solid season of television. I thought it kind of started off a little slow, those 1 and 2. But once we got into, we pivoted over to things kind of, we were building. We get to episode 4 with Rhaenys and Meleys and the fight, and then we got the ramifications of that. And then we got a fantastic episode 6 or 7. And then we ended things with a disappointing. So I would say, on a level, and by the way, as I'm doing this, put your scores of this episode and just your overall score of this season in the chat and in the comments. But as a season goes, this was inferior to season 1. I think season 1 is far and beyond much better writing, pacing, editing, if I'm being honest, is from a technical standpoint, character development, excitement, and you go back to season 1, they didn't even have much of like action, right? We barely saw any dragons season 1, but it was just like the verbal combat that was just so intriguing. I thought season 1 was just fantastic. Now season 2 was good, it was solid, but it was a setup season. It very much so. We'll give this episode a 6 out of 10. And my MVP is probably Daemon. No, my MVP is Alan. I really love that scene from Alan. I'm gonna give Alan an MVP. And then on a scale of 1 to 10 for our season, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. This is gonna be the end of the review portion of tonight's discussion. Like, share, comment your thoughts on the season, of the finale, and what you hope to see in season 3. And I'll catch you all in the next breakdown.